The world belongs to the one who doesn't panic. History loves loud guys. The flamethrowers, the chest beaters, the dudes who kick down the door screaming their own name. But the real winners? They're the ones sitting in the corner, sipping cold tea, watching everyone else screw themselves. In the late 1500s, the world wasn't run by patience. It was run by adrenaline and steel. Japan, especially, was a non-stop knife fight in a burning house. Everybody wanted to be king. Everybody thought they were chosen. And everybody died before finishing the sentence. This story isn't about the fastest blade. It's about the guy who let everyone else bleed out first. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't charming, he wasn't even liked. But when the smoke cleared, he owned the whole damn board. Chapter 2. War is a drug, and Japan was hooked for over a century. Lead Japan was stuck in grind mode. No pause button, no off-season. Lords betrayed lords. Brothers stabbed brothers. Peasants woke up as farmers and went to sleep as soldiers. This wasn't war for honor. This was war for rent money and ego. Everyone thought power meant swinging harder. But one man figured out something colder. Power isn't about winning fights. Power is about making fights pointless. While the hotheads were lighting temples on fire and flexing in armor, this man was learning names, debts, grudges, weaknesses. He memorized silence. He mastered waiting. He didn't rush history. He let history trip over itself. Chapter 3. The battle that was really a meeting. The year everything snapped wasn't some glorious anime showdown. It was foggy, confusing, messy. The kind of battlefield where nobody knew what the hell was going on. Two armies showed up. One wanted revenge, one wanted control. And half the generals were just waiting to see which side would still exist by lunch. This wasn't courage versus courage. This was loyalty versus fear. And fear won. Deals made in secret mattered more than swords. Promises whispered at night killed more men than arrows. One hesitation flipped the entire future of the country. By sunset, the war was over. By sunrise, the system had changed forever. Chapter 4. Turning enemies into office workers. Victory didn't look like a parade. It looked like paperwork. Instead of killing his enemies, the new boss did something worse. He made them busy. Build this castle. Move that river. Fix this road. Send your kids here. Live there. Ask permission for everything. Rebellion costs money. Bureaucracy drains it. Soon, the former warlords weren't plotting coups. They were stressed about budgets. That's how you win without swinging again. Chapter 5. Peace is just a golden cage. For the first time in generations, the killing stopped. No burning villages, no armies marching at dawn, no screams in the night. People called it peace. But peace came with rules. Lots of them. Who you could marry. Where you could live. What you could wear. When you could travel. What you could fix. What you couldn't touch. It was calm. It was stable. It was suffocating. And for a while, everyone forgot that the bars were there. Chapter 6. When warriors become accountants. Here's the cruel joke of history. If you train killers and then remove war, you don't get saints. You get unemployed predators. The warrior class kept their swords, but the blades stayed clean. They bowed, they wrote reports, they argued about poetry. Meanwhile, the people who were supposed to be nobodies, merchants, traders, hustlers, got rich, quietly, relentlessly. Money stopped caring about rank, and rank couldn't pay rent. Chapter 7. Fun always finds a way. When you lock a society down too tight, it leaks sideways. The cities exploded with nightlife, theaters, art.vice. Pleasure became rebellion. The rulers preached discipline. The streets invented style. This wasn't culture for kings. This was culture for people who wanted to forget the rules for a few hours. And the system hated it because it couldn't control it. Chapter 8. When morality goes off the rails. At some point, power gets bored. That's when things get weird. Compassion turned into law. Law turned into madness. Animals got more protection than humans. Common sense packed its bags and left. When rulers stop listening and start performing morality, everyone pays the price. The country survived, but the cracks got wider. Chapter 9. The system meets reality. You can freeze time, you can shut doors. You can pretend the outside world doesn't exist. until it knocks hard. Steamships didn't care about tradition, cannons didn't respect philosophy. When the future arrived, it didn't ask permission. And suddenly, the unbeatable system looked ancient. Chapter 10. The smartest move is walking away at the end. The final leader saw the truth. This wasn't a fight he could win. This wasn't a world he could freeze again. So he did the unthinkable. He stepped aside, not because he was weak, but because he understood timing. Sometimes survival isn't dying loudly. It's leaving before the building collapses. Chapter 11. The ghost that never left. The regime fell. But the mindset didn't. Discipline, hierarchy, loyalty to the system, fear of standing out. Those things didn't disappear. They just changed uniforms. Offices replaced castles. Briefcases replaced swords. Deadlines replaced battles. The code was still running. Chapter 12. The final truth. The greatest systems don't fail because they're bad. They fail because they work too well. They solve yesterday so perfectly that they strangle tomorrow. This story isn't about one man. It's about patience weaponized, stability abused, and time always winning. History doesn't belong to the loud. It belongs to the ones who wait, until waiting itself becomes dangerous. Chapter 13. Peace is expensive and somebody has to pay. Peace doesn't come free. It never has. When the swords finally stopped swinging, the bills showed up like overdue credit cards. Castles still needed upkeep. Armies still needed paychecks. Bureaucrats multiplied like mold in a damp basement. The system solved violence by inventing administration, and administration loves money. The warrior elite, once kings of the battlefield, were now salaried employees living on fixed income. Their pay hadn't changed in decades. Inflation didn't care. Rice prices didn't care. Reality didn't care. Honor doesn't buy groceries. And slowly, quietly, the people who were supposed to rule realized they were broke. Chapter 14. The merchants won without throwing a punch. Here's the plot twist nobody saw coming. The guys with no swords won. Merchants, traders, bankers, middlemen, the so-called bottom of society. While warriors were stuck living off tradition, merchants were swimming in cash. They financed construction. They lent money. They controlled food supply. And when someone controls food, they control patience. Samurai started borrowing, then borrowing more, then borrowing forever. Nothing kills pride faster than debt. A man trained to kill for honor now bowed politely to a shop owner because rent was due. That's how empires flip, not with blood, but with receipts. Chapter 15. The floating world. Escape from reality. When life becomes a rule book, people invent exits. The cities lit up at night. Theaters screamed with color. Music got louder. Drinks got stronger. Rules got ignored. Pleasure districts became pressure valves. You couldn't change the system, but you could forget it for a few hours. And forgetting felt revolutionary. The ruling class hated this world, but they secretly loved it. Nothing says hypocrisy like preaching discipline by day and sneaking into forbidden fun by night. Chapter 16. Too much control makes people weird. Absolute control doesn't create order forever. It creates obsession. At some point, the rulers stopped managing society and started micromanaging life itself. What you wore, what you spent, what you owned, what you enjoyed. Even compassion became mandatory. And when kindness turns into law, it stops being kind. People didn't feel safe anymore. They felt watched. The system that once protected them now hovered over them like a paranoid landlord. Chapter 17. When morality turns into a joke. Power loves pretending it's virtuous, so the government leaned hard into moral behavior. No luxury, no excess, no fun unless approved. Did it work? Of course not. People just got sneakier. Silk went under cotton. Gold hid inside wood. Wealth learned camouflage. You can regulate appearances, but you can't regulate desire. And desire always finds a back door. Chapter 18. The problem with paying warriors in food. Here's where the math completely broke. The economy ran on money. The government ran on rice. Warriors got paid in grain, but they had to live in cities where nothing ran on grain anymore. So when rice prices dropped, warriors starved. When rice prices rose, common people rioted. There was no winning. The system was running modern problems on ancient software, and software like that always crashes. Chapter 19. Fixing a broken system with good intentions. Every empire eventually gets a reformer. A guy who actually cares. A guy who sees the mess. A guy who says, yeah, this can't keep going. He cuts spending, preaches discipline, leads by example. And the people nod politely, then immediately go back to cheating the rules. Because you can't moralize your way out of economic reality. Good intentions don't beat structural rot. Chapter 20. Knowledge is a leak you can't plug. The rulers tried to block ideas. Foreign thoughts were dangerous. New science was suspicious. Different systems were threatening. But knowledge is water. It seeps. A few books here, a translation there, a diagram that suddenly explains why old beliefs were wrong. Once people realize they've been lied to about how the body works, they start wondering what else is fake. And curiosity is the enemy of frozen systems. Chapter 21. When nature turns against order, then came the hunger. Cold summers, endless rain, dark skies. The land failed. The granaries emptied, and the system, built for stability, not crisis, froze. Paperwork moved slower than starvation. People didn't debate philosophy anymore. They asked one question: will I eat tomorrow? Chapter 22. The day the mask slipped. Famine exposes everything. Hoarders got rich. Officials stalled. Processions marched past starving villages like cruel jokes. People stopped believing. When a government can't feed you, it loses the right to command you. Order without mercy becomes tyranny, and tyranny doesn't last. Chapter 23. The beginning of the end. After that, nothing truly recovered. The system stayed standing, but hollow. Warriors without purpose, rulers without answers, citizens without faith. Peace had done its job. Now it was becoming a liability. Chapter 24. Calm before impact. The country looked quiet, but it wasn't calm. It was holding its breath. Something was coming. From outside. From the future. And when it arrived, the system that once ruled everything would realize one brutal truth. You can lock the door, but you can't stop time from knocking. Chapter 25. The future doesn't knock, it shows up loud. For 200 years, the country had been asleep, not resting, not dreaming, sedated. Then one summer afternoon, the horizon filled with smoke. Not clouds, not mist, smoke that moved against the wind. The ocean, once a moat, turned into a highway. And rolling down that highway came machines that didn't care about tradition, hierarchy, or prayer. No sails, no poetry, just engines and iron. The future had arrived without asking permission. Chapter 26. The day myths died. Everything the system promised cracked in one moment. The warriors, unbeatable on land, were useless against floating steel. The coastal defenses were decorations. The old weapons were museum pieces. And worst of all, the gods didn't intervene. No divine wind, no miracle, just physics. That's when the panic hit. Not fear, humiliation. The realization that the entire world had moved on while this country was busy arguing about etiquette. You can survive fear. Humiliation rewires you. Chapter 27. Panic makes bad decisions faster. Once reality broke in, the ruling class did what dying systems always do. They stalled. They argued. They pretended this was temporary. Some screamed, "Kick them out!" Others whispered, "We can't." The system was built to say no. But no only works when the other side listens. And the cannons weren't listening. Chapter 28. When legitimacy runs out. Here's the thing about authority. It only exists as long as people believe in it. The moment the public realizes the rulers can't protect them, it's over. Maybe not instantly, but spiritually, done. The warriors didn't look invincible anymore. The leaders didn't look wise anymore. The rules didn't look sacred anymore. And once that illusion breaks, violence doesn't start. Questions do. Chapter 29. The old enemy returns. Ideas. Ideas are more dangerous than armies. Because you can shoot an army. You can't shoot doubt. Suddenly, people started asking wild questions. Why do we bow to them? Why do we live like this? Why are we starving while they negotiate? The words order and tradition stopped sounding noble and started sounding like excuses. The past wasn't protection anymore. It was baggage. Chapter 30. The kids with nothing to lose. Every collapse has a trigger group. Not the rich, not the comfortable. The angry, the unemployed. The humiliated. Young warriors without jobs. Thinkers without platforms. People raised on old promises, watching them disintegrate. They didn't want reform. They wanted fire. Chapter 31. The smartest man in a losing game. Then came the final boss. Not a brute, not a fanatic, a realist. He looked at the situation and saw the truth nobody else wanted to say out loud. This system cannot win, not in 10 years. Not in 5, not ever. So he did something insane. He quit. In a world where honor meant dying loudly, he chose survival. He handed the keys back, returned the title, and stepped out of the spotlight. People called him weak, a coward, a traitor. But what he actually did was steal the last move. By stepping aside, he pulled the fuse out of the bomb. At least, that was the plan. The war still came because rage doesn't care about logic. But the moment the sacred banner appeared on the opposite side, something snapped. Men trained to charge into death froze. You can fight soldiers, you can fight machines, but you can't fight belief. In that single heartbeat, the system lost its moral ground. And once that happened, the war was already over. Not everyone accepted it. Some people can't live without the old world. They took ships north, built a final fortress, and declared a dream. Honor, loyalty, the past, one last time. They fought beautifully. They lost completely. Because history doesn't care how poetic you die. Here's the strange part. There was no mass execution, no rivers of blood, no royal purge. The old rulers weren't erased. They were retired. It wasn't a revolution, it was a resignation. And that is exactly why it worked. The former ruler lived, not as a legend, not as a martyr, but as a man with hobbies. Photography, walking, watching the world change. He lived long enough to see everything he lost rebuilt into something stronger. That is the ultimate flex. Here's the twist nobody likes to admit. The system didn't disappear. It mutated. Hierarchy became corporate ladders. Loyalty became overtime. Honor became burnout. Same code, new interface. The cage opened, but the habits walked out with the people. The real lesson is this. The biggest mistake in history is thinking stability is the same as immortality. The system worked too well. It crushed chaos, killed war, froze change, and by doing that, it made itself obsolete. A solution that never knows when to stop eventually becomes the problem. Every nation needs a cocoon, protection, isolation, time to grow. But cocoons are not homes. Stay inside too long and you die safe. Break out at the right moment and you fly. This system stayed just a little too long. The loud don't win history, the patient do, but even patience has an expiration date. The man who waited longer than anyone else defeated war, chaos, and ambition. But no one defeats time, and when time decides you're done, the smartest move isn't resistance. It's letting go before you shatter. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and comment.